A multi-billion-dollar asset manager just made a massive prediction about the corporate adoption of Bitcoin. That implies that there might be 0 Bitcoin left on exchanges in literally 1 year's time. I know it sounds crazy, but I've crunched the numbers and had a little bit of a look at the recent data. And when we have a look at the recent adoptions of Bitcoin, we can see that 29 public companies have adopted Bitcoin in the past month. And on average, these public corporations with Bitcoin on the balance sheet have 6,307 Bitcoin on their treasury. Before we start crunching the numbers, let's listen to the prediction from Bitwise.
Today, there's 80 companies that hold Bitcoin, or 80 publicly traded companies that hold Bitcoin as a treasury asset. 5 years from now, if you zoom out and look ahead, how many publicly traded companies do you think will adopt Bitcoin as a treasury asset?
I expect it will be significantly higher.
It'll be thousands.
There will be thousands.
It's just going to continue to grow.
I expect that number in the future will be closer to 20%.
It's going to become central to actually how companies manage treasury.
Companies are really getting excited about this.
And I think when we look back, we're just going to go like, how did people not see this?
So again, you heard it very clearly from the mouths of actual asset managers, not a kid with a crazy haircut on the internet. So I wanted to run the numbers and have a look at just how much Bitcoin each of these asset allocators and public companies who adopt Bitcoin actually hold. And the numbers, I'm not going to lie, they surprised even me, and they made even me more bullish. So we can see that there is today 130 public companies with Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Collectively, they hold 810,000 Bitcoin. So I wanted to run a little bit of an average and have a look at how much does each public company hold on average. So then we can kind of use this number to analyze this forecast from Bitwise and many of the other asset managers that they just interviewed in that trailer I played for you. Because a lot of people hear, okay, 1,000 public companies could adopt Bitcoin and put on the balance sheet. But it's really difficult to turn that number into like a conceptualization. So let's have a look at this. So we can see on average, these entities hold 6,300 Bitcoin on their treasury. It's a lot of Bitcoin when we start thinking about it. So there's 130 public companies, and in the little red box I've got highlighted for this image here with the little arrow pointing towards it, that's showing us that 27 public companies have adopted Bitcoin in the past 30 days alone. That is true. And what scares me the most is that there's only 450 Bitcoin mined every day. Think about that for a minute. 450 Bitcoin mined a day. On average, we're seeing one new public company enter the Bitcoin space every single day. We saw 27 last month. It's nearly one a day. I'm sure you guys will let me round up from 0.93 to 1. So we see one public company enter the space every day. On average, the average treasury of the existing 130 public companies who hold Bitcoin today is 6,300 coins. 450 are mined a day. You guys starting to put together the maths that I'm playing with here? We're seeing a 12x supply suffocation. 12x. Every day, 450 are mined, but 6,000 on average will be ripped off the market if we're seeing a new public company enter the space every day. It's not that simple. There are some caveats we need to get to. We're going to get to the caveats. Let's continue crunching the numbers and having a look at the maths, what we got here. So here's one of the caveats I've got for you. Because again, a lot of people say, but some of these public companies sell Bitcoin, Luke. You can't just assume they all buy forever. It's true. So here I've got this little red box. This is showing us the holdings of public companies. Yes, you'll see sometimes a public company sells Bitcoin, but on average, on net, more than 90% of them are accumulating. Those coins that go into the balance sheets of public corporations, private corporations, governments, or nation states, or pension funds, it's a one-way highway, baby. What do I call it? Hotel California. You can check in, but those Bitcoin, they're not checking out. They're staying on the balance sheet forever. So let's have a look. So I wanted to crunch the numbers, and I said, okay, we're going to get to some caveats in a minute, but if we're adding one new public company a day, and if on average they want to accumulate the average amount of Bitcoin that is currently on the balance sheet of these 130 companies, so that's 6,000 coins, that means in the next 12 months alone, we're going to see 2,300,000 Bitcoin accumulated by these new public companies. And again, that absolutely shocked me. And again, let's remember, in the next month, there's only going to be 164,000 Bitcoin that is mined. That's scary, especially when we start considering how much Bitcoin is left on exchanges. This is where I want to just calculate the numbers and show you guys just how quickly we could be left in a world with, well, no Bitcoin left on exchanges, because that day could really come a lot quicker than most people think. So again, before we really lose our minds, let's not forget that the existing public companies, the 130 of them, they've actually bought 600,000 coins since November. So I know a lot of people will hear that big number that I read out a minute ago, 2,300,000 coins accumulated by new public companies in the next 12 months, and they could lose their mind a little bit. Luke, you've lost your marbles. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's slow down a minute. Let's recognize the existing public companies have bought 600,000 in the past 6 months. It's not a huge, crazy extrapolation. Now is where maybe the craziness comes. Because obviously we know there is how much Bitcoin sat on exchanges today. Depends upon what exchange you look at, but it's somewhere around 2.1 to 2.4 million Bitcoin. So if we, again, just assume the past month's worth of data goes forward and new public companies want to buy 2.3 million Bitcoin over the next 12 months, we know that 164,000 Bitcoin will be mined over the next 12 months. And this very comfortably gets us into a world where in about 357 days, there's 0 Bitcoin left on exchanges. And again, that's just the maths. That's just an extrapolation of the trend that you guys can see has been going on for 5 years now. This is a real trend. This is not cherry-picked data. I mean, someone could make a case that this is cherry-picked data, but we can see very clearly this trend's been going on for 5 years now, and I don't think it's going to slow down. If you jump on over here and take a little bit of a peep at Crypto Quant, I can very comfortably make the case that this trend is now going parabolic. Like if you flip this chart on its head, that is an exponential decrease of the number of Bitcoin on exchanges. This is where I'm really scared, because we showed you the numbers of what happens if just new public companies continue entering the space. But what if the old public companies just want to do what they just did over the past 6 months? Well, that would represent also 1.2 million Bitcoin worth of buy pressure just from the existing Bitcoin treasury companies, who again, like we showed you, 90% of them are not selling their Bitcoin. They're buying and they're increasing their holdings. Now, this is where the numbers get even more wonky. Because right now, let's get into the caveats. I'm going to show you the caveats. Right now, if you calculate it, the average number of Bitcoin on the treasury of a public corporation, it's 6,300 Bitcoin. Now, the bears or the fact checkers will correctly say, but Luke, oh, here we go. Brian literally brings it up at the exact point I'm about to hit on this topic. Thank you, Brian. Take MicroStrategy out of those numbers. Let's do it. I did it early today. Let's have a look. So that number is inflated because of MicroStrategy. Well, let's take a peep at what happens when we remove MicroStrategy. Here we are. So we can see if we take out the 600,000 Bitcoin that's currently held by MicroStrategy, where are we? Let's have a little bit of a peep at where we are. If you take them out, then new public companies, again, this is just the new public companies, the existing public companies hold 1,690 Bitcoin on their treasuries. This is what happens when you remove MicroStrategy. So again, let's take a little bit of a peep at our public companies. We got MicroStrategy with 592,000, but then we got Marathon, 49,000. It's just 21. They've got 37,000. Riot, 19,000 Bitcoin. Galaxy, 12,000 Bitcoin. CleanSpark, 12,000 Bitcoin. So we can see the average stack of existing public companies, it's 1,690 Bitcoin without MicroStrategy. That's nearly 4 times the existing supply. And this is just the existing companies. The whole premise of this video is have a look at the growth of the new companies getting into the Bitcoin space. 30 in the past 27 days. I wish I was joking, but I am not. We can see David Bailey just raised $700 million for his new company, Nakamoto. But wait, there's more. We know that a Spanish coffee chain came out and announced they were going to be raising $1.1 billion to invest that into Bitcoin. That's right, a Spanish coffee chain. Literally everybody is getting into Bitcoin. We can see a Brazilian listed company. How do you say that name? Miluzed? They just raised 32 million to buy more Bitcoin. Obviously, everybody knows about Metaplanet and them coming out and announcing they want to buy more Bitcoin. We can also see publicly traded Mercury T. I butchered that name. But they announced an $800 million Bitcoin raise to go out there and, yes, buy more Bitcoin. What I think is hilarious is that the fact we just saw our first Ethereum treasury company. And look what happened to their stock. Absolutely wrecked, down 67%. I thought that was comically not only ironic, but just hilarious. We can also see another Japanese company, Remix Point. They just raised 887 million yen. They currently hold over 1,000 coins. So again, these are just all of the new companies that nobody is even aware of. Of course, everybody knows about GameStop. They just bought 4,000 coins. The list is honestly endless. I could just go on and on and on and have a look at all of the new treasury companies putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. The Smarter Web company, that stock looks like it really agrees with the most recent announcement of putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. What about another Japanese company? Japanese video game developer Gummy just purchased 1 billion yen worth of Bitcoin. So again, like the numbers we're throwing around here, I'm not making stuff up. This is literally just the state of affairs right now. We literally have 27 new public companies in the past 30 days. If this trend simply continues, there's no Bitcoin left for the plebs. And it's really scary. And this is, again, I kind of finished this thread that I wrote today on a little bit of a, let's just say, I'm trying to be careful with what I say on a live stream, but I just said, look, we've never seen this before in a Bitcoin bull run before. We've never seen the supply suffocation that we're seeing today accelerate at the rates that it is. So I just think using 12 years of data between 2008 and 2020, where there wasn't a supply shock, and 18 million Bitcoin were mined, I think all of that's faulty data. All of it. This is why I just think the power law model, the power opinion, stock to flow, it's all going to get wrecked. And I've been saying this for 4 years. When the stock to flow was popular, I said it's going to break. It is not ready to model Bitcoin into the 2020s. It's as simple as that. I think the only really modeling we can do is just understand that, you know, Bitcoin is going to surprise the most amount of people. It's as simple as that. It is going to be absolutely impossible to model and forecast the price of Bitcoin because what we're living through is something we've never lived before. We've never lived through before, in human history. And I just think what we're seeing right now is Bitcoin approach an inflection point. And when you zoom out, the Bitcoin era that we're going to live through is probably going to be the biggest technological revolution or transition in history. Now, I've got a couple of comments I want to hit on here in a moment. But while I'm talking about Bitwise and that really catchy little interview they did, I wanted to talk about another interview or video that I saw come out of Bitwise recently. Because this multi-billion-dollar asset manager just said that 1 Bitcoin is the new American dream. So today we're not only going to crunch the numbers of how the American dream has got more and more unaffordable over the past few decades and why it's impossible to retire, we're going to be having a look at why you might even need less than that 1 Bitcoin to really create yourself an American dream for not only you, but also your family. Let's listen to that clip.
And its representation across the globe of the people who believe in the same value system, and you can opt out. And that's why I think for me, it's very obvious that young people now think of the American dream very differently. They're not worried about homeownership. They want to become whole coiner. Everyone wants to want 1 Bitcoin as like the American dream if you're a very young person. And many actually more than that as ways they think about, you know, the popular meme of retiring their bloodline, but they want more Bitcoin that they can share with them, their nuclear family, their children. And that is a more powerful, I think, social signal than, hey, I have this white picketed home in the suburban neighborhood. it doesn't carry the same prestige anymore with young people the way that a whole coiner would, I think, in the future.
So let's break down, again, I think that's a really interesting thought experiment here. One Bitcoin is the new American dream, but what is the great American dream? What is that white picket fence? Well, let's break it down. Everybody used to move to America because of the great American dream. You could buy a home for $50,000. It used to only cost you, 3 to 4 times somebody's average income, so you could comfortably save for the great American dream. But all of a sudden, this has changed. We can now see the great American dream cost somewhere around $3.3 million. Pretty crazy when you start thinking about things. And what I think is really interesting is when we start pricing things in Bitcoin, because we can see very clearly the American dream, depending upon how you measure it, but if you just want to buy an average size home, so to say, you can see that you can probably pick one up for about 4 Bitcoin these days. These kind of comparisons, or looking at real estate priced in Bitcoin, some of my favorite comparisons to look at. Let's take a peep at this one here, because it's not nearly as if each Bitcoin epoch, so every time we have a halving, 2012, 2016, 2020, 2024, you can nearly see that house prices drop by an order of magnitude every epoch we go through. So we can see here, 2016, a home costed 664 Bitcoin. In 2020, it costed 45 Bitcoin. And today in 2024, or last year in 2024, it was 6.6 Bitcoin. So I've graphed this out previously, and I've showed that on average, house prices are getting about 80 to 90% cheaper every 4 years, priced in Bitcoin. So what would that mean in 2028? Well, the great American dream, an average size house, that would cost somewhere around 1 Bitcoin. That would be the great American dream that Bitwise is talking about here, which I think is a really interesting way to kind of look at things and look at how rapidly the price of housing is just getting so much cheaper. Now, hang on. I could have swore I made this. No, I didn't make this chart. I made one very similar back in the day, but this is another chart showing exactly what we're just talking about. Everything is getting cheaper priced in Bitcoin. And what I think is really interesting is that when you're pricing the same thing in dollars, it obviously gets more expensive. This is why I like this little image that I've popped up on screen for you guys right now. You can see in dollars, house prices continue to rise by nearly 50 to 100,000 every 4 years. Each 4-year epoch, houses just get more and more expensive priced in dollars. But of course, in Bitcoin, that's completely different. Now, why is that? Some people might be wondering, well, why? Why is the great American dream all of a sudden out of touch? Well, I think a lot of it can be explained by this website here. WTF happened in 1971. Why is our hourly compensation, that's in blue, not keeping up with the productivity of the economy? A lot of these charts here are going to really help to explain the pain that a lot of people feel, because everybody feels that it's nearly impossible for the little guy to get ahead these days and afford the great American dream. And again, these charts back it up. Let's have a look at this blue line here. The bottom 90% of earners. So this is nearly everybody. This is 90 people out of 100 that we're looking at in this chart. Well, look at this. Their income's actually gone down for the past 50 years. What's happening? Well, what is happening is that red line that you're looking at on the same chart, that's looking at the wealth held by the top 1%. And have a look at how that has grown by about 400%. Now, again, I don't want to confuse people. This is fine. It is fine that there is wealthy people, and it is always naturally fine that the 1% is going to own a lot more than the bottom 90%. I don't want anyone to get confused. I'm not arguing for wealth equality, okay? Equality is a scam. What we should be striving for is equal opportunity. And the reason why this chart paints the picture that it does is because right now we do not have equal opportunity. We're living under a monetary system where assets are artificially inflated. And guess who gets the opportunity to go out there and not only buy all of the stocks, but buy all of the houses very, very cheaply with near 0% interest rates? It's the bankers, it's the politicians, it's the Nancy Pelosi's who might have $100 million net worth despite only earning $100,000 to $200,000 a year. Okay. It's the people who benefited most from the 2008 global housing crisis. It's the bankers who got a bailout, but the everyday person, when their loan went bad on their home, they didn't get a bailout. Okay, these charts that I like to show you guys from time to time really, I think, helps to explain why nobody can afford the great American dream anymore. What's really interesting is, again, wealth inequality is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Absolutely, it's a good thing. Those who are most productive should be rewarded and incentivized to create incredible goods and services for us to consume. But what I do think is interesting is that wealth inequality has not been this extreme since the 1930s. And some of these charts here, having a look at CPI inflation, are kind of mind-boggling. This here's a 250-year chart looking at US CPI. And you can see how parabolic this thing is going. There is no slowing down. And of course, this is only going to make the affordability of the great American dream more and more unattainable. We can see here, real house prices in Amsterdam. Look at that, 500% higher than a 400-year average. This is a 400-year average, guys, 1620 to 2020. It bounced between this index between 100 and 200. Now it's approaching 600. It's insane. The American dream is absolutely over. Equal opportunity. I'd be fascinated. I got some great comments in the chat that I'm going to circle back to. There's 600 of you guys in here today, and it looks lively. But what I will say is, like, look, this is why we Bitcoin. This is obviously why saving in Bitcoin is the only option. If you do want the great American dream, I mean, I think I've said it here. Buy Bitcoin. There is no second best. There is no other solution. It's you either buy Bitcoin or the great American dream gets more and more unattainable. I got one more chart I want to show you that I thought was really interesting. Take a peep at this one. House prices in dollars just continue to get more expensive. In Bitcoin, it's trending down forever. Again, people think we're being hyperbolic when we say, you know, everything priced in Bitcoin will trend to zero forever. I didn't think so. I think the American dream today costs $4.4 million, and it's only a matter of time before it's $10 million, $50 million. It's obviously only a matter of time. But of course, most people don't understand that. This is obviously why we Bitcoin. This is why, again, I'm in Prague right now. I'm here for the BTC Prague conference. Again, if you guys are in town, come say g'day. It's going to be a huge week. Conference kicks off on Thursday, so we've got 2 days left. Some of the biggest speakers in Bitcoin are going to be there. It's going to be absolutely enormous. Again, just a quick one. If you guys don't have your tickets yet, grab yourself 10% off your tickets with promo code LukeM10. That's a little bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But again, I think it's going to be a huge week. Highly, highly, highly encourage you guys to get down to Prague. It's going to be absolutely massive. I think it's probably going to be one of the biggest conferences in Europe. There's going to be at least 5,000 people here, which I think is absolutely huge, which obviously means that there's going to be a ton of other events on during the week. This is, again, why I also encourage you guys to check out Satlantis to find all of the other Bitcoin-related satellite events that's going to be happening in the great city of Prague this week. As you can see, if you jump on the city page of Prague, you're not only going to see a breakdown of, you know, what kind of cost of living or infrastructure or Bitcoin acceptance you're going to see in the city of Prague, but you're also going to see the events page here on the right-hand side of this little website here. And so again, if you want to know which events to go to, this is the #1 place to go and sign up for all of your Bitcoin events. So everything you need to know about Satlantis and BTC Prague, linked down below. But with all that said, guys, I think the great American dream, Bitcoin is your only solution. There is no second best. It's as simple as that. There is no second best. I honestly don't think you're going to need 1 Bitcoin, to, you know, retire and get that great American dream, I actually think we're a lot closer to the Bitcoin era than most people think. And I genuinely think all of this is going to unfold much quicker than most people think. Again, the whole premise of today's video, it was based on a Twitter thread I wrote today. If you want to go fact check my numbers and explore whether there will be no Bitcoin on exchanges in 350 odd days, I have all of the maths in this Twitter thread for you guys to go and check out. Go and crunch the numbers for yourself. Look at the caveats I added in there. Again, I thought I made a conservative bearish case. Just looking at the data. So again, you can go fact check all of the maths for yourself. And if you want to learn more about why you are simply too bearish on Bitcoin and why you probably need less Bitcoin to retire than you think, I'm going to put some links to a recent video and an interview with British Hodl and Peter Dunworth up on screen. Somewhere around there, those little thumbnails are going to pop up after this video is finished. And with all that said, guys, I'm going to see you in the next one. Hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed Prague. Come say g'day if you are here.